for a group. I hadn't done it before. So I said black turtleneck and string of turquoise. What does the guy show up with? A black turtleneck and a string of turquoise.
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
Well, then you were right.
Yeah, right. And anyway, I really have no idea why I became a poet in midlife, except that I like to make people laugh. And writing poetry helps me to put life in perspective. My life has been pretty crazy at times. I had written a few poems when I was in my teens and actually had one published in the National Anthology of High School Poetry. I think my love of words was nurtured by my prep school English teacher, Miss Edith Evans, a lovely spinster lady with a sweet smile and a rather bemused expression on her face. She was sweet, but she was tough, and nothing but the best would do. I never took a course in how to write poetry. In 1955, I married the wrong man for all the wrong reasons, and the only poems I wrote for 20 years were Christmas letters in rhyme. I think wrenching myself loose from the security of the corporate arena and the loveless marriage opened up a flood of emotion and self-realization that had been suppressed for a very long time. I began writing verse, and sometimes I felt as if I were just a scribe, writing down what was sent to me, often in the middle of the night. And if you don't write it down in the middle of the night, you don't know what it was in the morning, it's gone. Because I had always had a deep down sense that I had been given to the wrong family, in the wrong place, Connecticut, I went searching and settled in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I met Tom Hardman, who would eventually become my second husband. He was actually an overgrown hippie at the time. But you will see later, he cleaned up nice. The nearby mountains were beautiful and turned pink when the sun set. I moved to Farmington to be near Tom, but it did not work out. And I moved to Durango, Colorado, where I had an administrative job and originated a TV show for seniors. Unfortunately, I contracted mononucleosis while training teen volunteers and had to stop working and move back to Farmington with Tom. After we were finally married in 1994, after being apart yet again for several years, I wrote more and more and was published regularly in the Farmington Daily Times. The high desert was inspiring, and the tall mountains above Durango were close enough for day trips. Many times the beauty just blew me away. I felt I was living in an enchanted life and loved the Native American spirits that were everywhere because we traveled all over the Navajo reservation and visited pueblos also. In the high desert, the earth seems indeed like the floor of the sky. I believe Willa Cather said that. Cather, is it Cather or Cather? I never know. Anyway, I will read you some samples of the things that have inspired me. Also, I tend to be a person who gets kind of coincidences, kind of cool happenings. And one of them was my New Mexico license plate, 970 cat. I was traveling with a cat, and I got this quite by accident. And my mother's license plate was 9070, and I get 970. Kind of funny. Anyway, of course, the most recent inspiration has been the virus. So I'll start with that and get the unpleasant stuff out of the way. My mother, Grace Bigelow Churchill, survived the flu epidemic of 1918. She never talked much about it, except to say that she was made painfully aware that her beautiful cousin Norma also had an only child, had died, while she, my less beautiful mother, survived. I think she carried that hurt all her life. Here I am 100 years later, confined to my apartment, and we have another pandemic. So these are in no particular order. This is called An Earth Cried Out. Get off the planet, you creatures of greed. I send you warnings you just do not heed. I'll burn you. I'll drown you. You will live in fear. How else can I wake you to listen and hear? The real deal. I think the infection is nature's correction to the chaos created by man. It's her solution to global pollution. We're staying home all we can. The air is much cleaner, but profits are leaner in businesses across our land. If we'd found a solution to all the pollution, perhaps she'd have passed this hand. And COVID-19 said, I'm so small, you cannot see me, and I'm evil to the core. I've already sickened millions, and I'll sicken millions more. On surfaces, I can survive for many hours or days. If airborne, I can sicken you in strange and subtle ways. Be sure to wear your masks around and hope you don't forget, for I'm a pushy pathogen, and I may get you yet.
Wow.
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 And then I guess I was going to skip a couple, but this one's good. And Earth wept. Why don't you love me enough so you care? Do I have to kill you to make you aware? The onus is on you. The ball's in your court. The clock is ticking and your life is short. But I must support generations to come. If I am destroyed, they won't have a home. And then I've always had this feeling that if there is a God looking down on the chaos that man has created here, he's saying to himself, I should have stopped with the apes, because I think human beings are the worst thing that could have happened to the beautiful planet that existed before we started tinkering with everything. So this is Mother Nature's Day. Actually, this was accepted for publication in the Pasadena Weekly, but then they were going to put it in the letters to the editor. And then it turned out that they kind of stopped. George Floyd got killed and the whole focus changed. So really, I don't think it was ever in. But anyway, there used to be balance in nature, but man has ruined it all by greed and overproduction. It's the worst thing since the fall. When Noah loaded the creatures, he took 2 of each species to save. Now man has tipped the balance. The situation has become grave. When apes were the dominant species, they understood nature's way. But evolution kept on expanding. Unethical humans hold sway. So COVID-19 is her answer to man's destructive bent. She'll simply eliminate people, and Earth will not care where they went.
Mm.
And then for those of you who, as I am, I have a couple of dates that were made like a year ago that I'm hoping someday to enjoy. This is called Love in the Time of COVID-19, with apologies to Gabriel Garcia Marquez for the title. We cannot touch, though I love you so much. Must keep our distance and practice resistance. Can you hear my heart, though we're 6 feet apart? It beats strong as ever, though it has never been through a test that could put it to rest, like the COVID-19. And then, I guess this is the last one in this genre. Reality check during COVID-19. The salons have closed, alas, alack. My natural gray begins to grow back. Who was I fooling by dyeing it blonde, red, black, or auburn? I fear I'm beyond. I've hidden my mirror to hide the truth. Of the fact that I'm aging, there's visible proof. Perhaps when my hair is au naturel, I'll decide that when dyed, it sure looked like hell. I'll reclaim my freedom, wear a bob or a bun, and spend my salon time out having fun.
I like it.
But there is a lighter side.
Cool. Very nice.
Oh, me. So then, as I said, I found my real life, my real me in New Mexico. And when I first went there, I bought a beautiful Indian dress in Santa Fe,
Mhm.
velvet, and it's long gone because I outgrew it, unfortunately. And then I also went in for some Indian jewelry. And it was just so, I don't know, like I said, this is called finding myself. New Mexico beckoned, so I reckoned it was the place to be. The skies and the spaces, the ancient places, called softly out to me. The voices I heard never said a word. It was a mysterious thing, an inner knowing that left me glowing, made chords in my being sing. So stuff I was selling and friends I was telling of plans to quest for my vision, my hopes all consuming, no fear ever looming, I played out my decision. Here in LA, I remember the way I felt as I started driving, the thrill of the road, the relief from the load of constant and useless striving. For 30 years, through joys and tears, New Mexico was my home. Sometimes I yearn to pack up and return, but I am too old to roam. So memories flow inside, and I know I am forever changed because I fled the life I had led and dared to rearrange. And then we'll do a couple of coyote poems here. We now have coyotes here in Pasadena and Altadena. So I thought I'd do my coyote poems. For a while, I lived down in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. The Rio Grande runs right through it. And I wrote these when I was down there. Coyote. Howling cries echoing at dawn on Turtleback Mountain. Chicken feathers, bloody trails at the farm by the river, where you came to slake your desert thirst. You stir my feral nature. I am one with you. Trickster of Navajo legend, run for me, for I cannot flee. My self-sprung snare of love. Coyote speaks. My cries echo at dawn on Turtleback Mountain. Chicken feathers lie. Wait a minute. This is another version of that one, a little different. Chicken feathers lie in bloody trails at the farm by the river where I came to slake my desert thirst. You envy my feral nature, my loping flight. I run free, but you thirst for love. And we do bind ourselves in so many ways. I had a very distant father as a child, and so I think that this is the first time in my life I have not felt a real need to pair up. And I know that it came from having a father who was very, very distant from me. And then when I lived in Farmington, New Mexico, we were just an hour south of Durango, Colorado. And there was the highway that went up there, there was an offshoot, and you could go into the old town of Bondad, where there was an old trading house. And then Tom and I went exploring one day, and we found this deserted house. And we would stop and go in, and it was fascinating. So this is House in Bondad. Deserted house, so alone and empty. In your trash heap, clockworks and broken glass. Wall boards gape through rips in garish paper, water spotted. Jagged gaps in floorboards wait to trip intruders into your solitude. Light casts strange shadows through missing shingles. Sad house, so alone. Lonely shell, your family fled, snuffing out your vibrance. Dead house, so alone. I used to get so sad when I went there because, you know, you wonder who ever lived there and whatever happened to them. And then through Durango, there was El Rio de las Animas Perdidas, which is the river of lost souls. This is called Lost Souls. El Rio de las Animas Perdidas sounds ominous in the extreme, but it's here along its bosky banks that I have found my dream. If I listen very carefully, the waters speak to me. I know those spirits gather round to keep me company. They were lost, but I have found them playing along the banks, and for their sparkling repartee, I offer them my thanks. And then on the reservation, there's an area called the Bisti Badlands, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's just the most amazing thing you'll ever see. And it's all eroded shapes. Many of them look like animals. And I looked through my pictures, but so many of them are so faded, they wouldn't have shown, and they were very small. But I did have this, I think this came from an article or a calendar, but this will give you some idea of what the Bisti Badlands is really like. And it was just, and we could just drive down there and hang out in the Badlands. Every now and then a cow would wander through, and every now and then a Navajo would wander through, but we were there a lot. But the sad thing was that underneath all this incredible beauty, there was coal. So this poem addresses that. We did get one open pit coal mine closed, and we did get a big part of the Bisti Badlands saved as a national, I think it's a national monument or a wilderness. Yeah, it's a Defnas Inn and Bisti Wilderness now. But anyway, this is called Bisti. Mounds of stripes, stacked gray and white, hills of red punctuating eroded shapes of hoodoos, wind-blown exotic creatures defying description, petrified palms, and secret crystals, relics left by the dying swamp, and underneath, black veins of coal, genesis of another dying. And then this one I spoke, I still have Navajo friends, and I admire the way they think about life very, very much. And so I wrote this from the standpoint of a Navajo. I am Navajo. I cannot find enough rainbow ways to travel upon. I am Navajo, one traveling the rainbow. I am as durable as desert seeds. I am as clear as children's laughter. I am paradoxical as coyote. I am as easy to unravel as sage and cochineal blankets. I am as moving as the swirling clouds. And then many of you have heard about when the Navajo were forced to walk 350 miles to Bosque Redondo in New Mexico. It was called the Long Walk. And yet another treaty was broken, and this is history. Anyway, it happened in 1864. And 8,500 Navajos were forced to make this walk, 300 miles, and 200 of them died. This is called Distant Rain. I think I wrote this actually when I was down in southern New Mexico and we had a thunderstorm. Distant rain, you beat like Indian drums on parched reservation land. Or do you sound like the muffled footsteps of thousands of proud people forced to walk years ago so many miles, falling falling along the way, bitter memory. And then below Mesa Verde, there is a canyon where there are cliff dwellings. And I took, you have to have a special permit, and I was lucky enough to find a group that was going, and this came from that. It was a place where they lived on the north side of the canyon in the sun in the wintertime. And in the summer, they had houses on the south side of the canyon to stay cool. So they just switched back and forth. And there were still little corn cobs that had been there for hundreds of years. It's called Windborne. Whispering winds carry conversations of Mesa Verde spirits across the canyon. Echoes of ancients, bronzed bodies, carrying, cooking, caressing, cracking corn. And then when I lived in Durango, I drove back and forth to Farmington quite a bit. And along the De La Plata River, there was a highway, and it was mostly farmland. It's absolutely incredibly beautiful. And this is called soaring. Glancing eastward while driving north on La Plata Highway, I saw a great bird fold its wings, dive nearly to the ground, and spread them just in time to land on unwary prey. Bald eagles, for there were three. Two soared above, feathered magnificence. And this is one of my favorites, because we used to go up into the mountains. There are 14ers all through those mountains. And you can just drive up there and look at these awesome mountains. And in the fall, when the aspens turn golden, it blows your mind. There's hardly any way to really describe it. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures to show you. But this is called perspective. I like to feel little in landscape, with mountains towering above and meadows stretching before me with herds of elk on the move. The desert is also so calming, its vastness stretching out. Its life speaks of survival, what existence is all about. It puts my life in perspective. I like to feel so small. My problems seem to diminish as I gaze in awe at it all. I hope that when I get to heaven, I'll still feel such glorious bliss, and mountains and deserts will greet me. It doesn't get better than this.
That was beautiful.
And then thank you. Driving through New Mexico. When you live in New Mexico, you drive a lot. Tom and I thought nothing of driving 3 hours each way to go to lunch in Bernalillo, just north of Albuquerque. And nothing to it, you just do it. And you know, distances were measured in hours, not miles. We didn't talk about the miles. Interesting. This is called New Mexico Journeys. Driving through New Mexico, there seems to be no end to sights that are amazing, with more around each bend. I like to think what used to be when pterodactyls soared and dinosaurs and horny toads lived where volcanoes roared. I like to feel the awe inside when contemplating thus. It makes me see how long it took for life to evolve to us. And then speaking of horny toads, I have a couple about horny toads too. This one's called Ancient Brother. I saw a little horny toad sunning on a hot tar road. I picked him up and in my palm, felt him fall into a calm and very trusting mode, rather unusual for a toad. While I stroked gently on his head, he sleepily looked up and said, I really am too young to die. I'm happy that you happened by and scooped me up to have a chat before some driver squashed me flat. Hmm. I have time for this. Um, here's another one. This is another horny toad one. It's called Relic, because they were around when the dinosaurs were, and somehow or other they're still here.
Hmm.
Relic of prehistory. How did you survive till now? I saw you from my window one morning early, basking on warm asphalt to jumpstart your viviparous, cold-blooded being, fearless and unaware of danger. I ran out to you, horned lizard, rescued you from sure destruction in the road behind my house. You did not flee my hand. I stroked your head, your back, your eyes closed in pleasure. You would have stayed, but I released you, awed by this brief connection with a truly ancient one. When after I had mononucleosis and had to give up my job in Durango, I stayed with Tom. This was before we were married. I stayed for a while in Farmington with him. But somehow or other, I just felt my mother was the age I am now. And I wanted to go back just to see if I could stand to live near her again. Because I loved her very much and I wanted to, I didn't get to see her very often. So I was there for the better part of 2 years. And the day I turned 60, I said, I'm going back. I'm going back to New Mexico. I cannot hack the East Coast. I was single. The men were horrible. It was just after living in New Mexico where life was so exciting. I had to go back. So I loaded up my cat and I got in my Bronco 2, which had like 130,000 miles on it, and headed west a couple of days after I turned 60. And this is called returning. I went to Albuquerque at that time. New Mexico, you welcome me. Bright mesas against stark desert. Shiprock, Angel Peak, Huerfano Mesa. I have missed you. Navajo laughter. I have missed you. Sunset beyond compare. I have missed you. While I was away, there was a place empty in my heart. You fill that space as the Anasazi people filled ancient dwellings now lying under shifting sand. New Mexico, with your mysteries, I am at home. Now, let's see. On to some thoughts on life. Oh, this one, these are kind of silly, some of them. But anyway, this one is it's a coping verse, let's put it that way. It's called Sane, Moi. If I were sane, I'd surely go crazy. The changes in life sometimes stink. The loss of agility and other ability could push me over the brink. I twist up my mind, and sometimes I find what's better than lying in bed. A mind that's askew can be helpful to you in dealing with what lies ahead. Thinking a kilter can give one a filter for what one wants to forget. It's helped me a lot, though I'm going to pot that hill. I'm not over it yet. And then I don't know if some of the rest of you have shopping frustrations, but I sure do. And this is called Passez Moi. I must be old-fashioned and not a la mode. Is my taste just too tacky, or am I just old? For my shopping efforts, give me the blues. When I need some new bras or good walking shoes. When I go to replace them, I'm too often told, the model you're wearing is no longer sold.
I can relate.
And this is called the cutting room floor. I think life is like a movie studio. were the relationships with people who did not deserve your devotion, the experiences that cause lingering hurts, the fears of youth distorted and magnified in middle age, the times of illness, sadness, and grief can, after being distilled to their ultimate significance, be tossed on the cutting room floor. Here's another nostalgia thing. It's called nostalgia. When I was a girl, I loved to see actors on the silver screen. Betty and Bogey may have made love, but it was never seen. I liked innuendo and subtle suggestion and something to be figured out. I knew, though it wasn't explicit, what the plot was really about. They don't need to show me the details. Indecency gives me a pain. Just leave me to my surmises and give me the fade out again. Okay, let's see how we're doing here on time. Okay. This is just a piece. Oh, here. History. This was written at the request of a friend. History is very safe. It has already taken place. Though some of it is very strange, the facts and dates will never change. I haven't studied it a lot. My psyche's always up and hot for exciting things and new ideas. Bring them on, I have no fears. New books and poems I'll come to know. New faces, places, plants I'll grow. New memories I want to make and little risks I want to take. I've maybe 20 years to go. This was written in 2013. I've maybe 20 years to go. How long it would be nice to know. As long as it's a mystery, I'll keep on making history. And then, I don't know, some of you may have had a similar experience to this. It happened at League of Women Voters, and they were talking about ballots, and I made a comment that I thought showed that I understood something, and it was well-meaning. And one particular woman came up to me afterward and read me out. She had taken it totally wrong. And so I really didn't fight about it because there was no point. But anyway, this is called misunderstanding. And I actually got to read it at the next meeting. Sometimes you think a person meant something for which they'd no intent. You get real mad and then accuse unjustly. There is no excuse for rudeness very undeserved, which leaves the speaker so unnerved. Think of why you took offense and let them speak in their defense. And if attack you feel you must, first be sure that it is just. If you came cloaked in paranoia, hang your coat out in the foyer.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good.
What happened?
Okay, let's see. We want to go. Do we want oh, here we go. Yeah, here's some cute ones. Okay, I decided not to read poems on writing. Here's some personal musings. Mother said, my mother was very proper. Mother said, I must be sure my underwear is clean and nicely mended in case there is an accident that I had not intended. I should not want the EMTs to think I didn't care enough about my hygiene to wear clean underwear.
We all got that.
Oh, yeah, we all got that.
Yeah.
My mother was a poet too. She wrote really, really sweet, sentimental stuff. And then when I was first single, I've always loved to buy clothes at thrift shops because they're older, they're made better than what you get now, and you get real style. You get really, really fun stuff. So anyway, this is called Second Time Around. I like to dress in pre-owned clothes from thrift shops, nearly free. The mystery of their history wears very well with me. I always find some materials that are still clean and fine, and clothes that still have character, though they're of a past design. My closet's full of designer names that I got for a pittance. When shopping at my favorite thrift, I have no sales resistance. I think it would be fun to know who might have had them on and where they spent the time before they came to me to don. There must be some among my clothes that came from artist's spine. One surely was a poet because I can't stop writing rhyme.
Sally, have you been to the Rag Pickers Tea Party?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, it'll happen again at the village. You would love it.
Okay. This is called Lament for What's Lost. I wasn't going to read anything political. I'm trying to think what the date was for this. It was written in 2018. So yeah, it's a little political. The last time I read something political, I got in trouble, but this is not overly political. It's Lament for What's Lost. And we have a long way to go. A listless loneliness lurks beneath the surface of everything I do these days. My closest friends have died, moved on to another realm, while I must struggle to survive the season of insanity which grips my land, a land which promised so much to so many, where soldiers slaughtered the natives and took their land, caring nothing for people with respect for the earth in ways superior to ours, where noble Africans were forced to pick cotton and endure the white man's rape and lash, where the black man may be shot by cops before a question is asked due to assumptions, where asylum is denied. Has the Constitution become an inconvenient and practical joke? Where has conscience gone? Where is honor? Where is honesty? Diogenes, lend me your lamp. Picking up the pieces. And I think we all have scars. I know I have many. And so this is another kind of a coping verse. Who am I? Who are you? What pieces of childhood remain, smuggled out of consciousness? Relax into recall. Feel the wonder, the thrill of discovering shards of the broken pot long buried. Let the sharp edges prick your mind into consciousness. Let the joy or pain bring focus. Bleed a little, cry if you must, then go about your day. I'm doing okay on time here.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this is the Pearline Rose. When I lived in Glendale for a couple of years, this was written over there. I stole a rose one day and I hid it in the bag of my walker and took it home. The purloined rose. They'll never miss it, this rose that I took. I secretly snatched it, hoped no one would look. It smells so enticing and looks so divine. I knew when I saw it, it had to be mine. Its petals were perfect. It was a true gem. When no one was looking, I pulled on its stem. The pleasure it gave me snuffed out my guilt. Who would have enjoyed it if I'd left it to wilt? Talk about rationalization. And then when I was 81, I had all my whole life, I'd had a nose like an Indian, which was very useful in New Mexico. In New York, I passed for Jewish. On the reservation, I passed for Navajo. People used to ask Tom what kind of Indian I was. And then I finally got sick of the damn thing because I was going around going full face to everybody because I didn't want to show my horrible profile. So when I was 81, I had a nose job. And this comes from that. It's called renosation.
Wow.
I altered my schnoz, and that is because it was always too big for my face. It was way out ahead. I went where it led, but I just couldn't keep up the pace. My
Oh,
nose,
that's great.
my nose doctor was going to have that published in his medical journal. I don't
Oh,
know
that's great.
if it ever made it or not.
That's great.
Oh man, I spent June and July amassing 2 albums of my lifetime's work. They're this thick,
Wow.
and then I have to close with a few poems about my beloved second husband, Tom. This is what he looked like when he was about 94 years old. He never got wrinkles. I don't know why. He was a farm boy from Kansas with a GED from high school, who was a genius and could do anything and knew everything. He was astonishingly well educated on his own. So this was written to Tom on our 10th anniversary. Once we were Indian spirits camped out beside a stream, and now along the animus we waken to that dream. Our souls flow swiftly onward as we are near life's end, but each day brings awareness of pleasure round the bend. Our union was ordained for us long before we knew that fate would bring us both such love as happens to so few. 10 years have flowed so swiftly by, I can't believe how long we've paddled life's cold stream together through sadness and with song. So though we face some churning rapids, we seem to slide on through. As a team, we can do anything. We're a good pair, me and you.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Tom had an OBE when he was 39. He died of a heart attack. And they brought him back to life after, I don't know, minutes. He said they watched them. And I had nearly died of a hemorrhage after my second child was born. And I can remember the nurse telling the doctor across my bed, I can't get her pulse. And I think we shared these near death experiences, and people, strangers would come up to us and say, you have the most incredible connection. We sense an aura kind of thing. I've had nurses in nursing homes take me aside and say, you have a wonderful connection to your husband, don't you? And it was an otherworldly kind of a thing. And I do think it had to do with the fact that, we had both been so close to death. Okay, let's see what I've got left here. On a Sunday in Silverton. Silverton was a mining town up north of Durango. Sun on a blanket, hair blown by the breeze, time on a Sunday to do as we please. Water tumbling over glistening rocks. We've no need to hurry, no use for clocks. Chicken, fresh muffins, and salad are fare. It all tastes delicious in clean mountain air. I look with contentment at blue sky above and think with pure wonder of our bond of love. It follows us always wherever we go. It comforts, it teaches, and helps us grow. We're learning true patience with passage of time. We can cap days of sadness with moments sublime. Consumed by the passion of love or pure lust, we join one another in ultimate trust. And although our ages are so far apart, what truly matters is what's in the heart. For those that are loving have always known they live in a special world of their own. When years are no more than so many days during which love can blossom in so many ways. And then he had problems with his arteries stopping up, and he would be difficult at times. And this came from that, a period. We would go have another stent put in and he'd be fine for a while. This is called Fire Danger High. Singed by your wildfire anger, my ego reduced to ashes. I am seared by hot coals of resentment, threatening to burst into flame. Choked by the rising smoke, I think fire with fire, but I see it would be exhausting and useless. I cannot outrun the firestorm. And then this was the last one I wrote to him. This was in 2011 and he died in 2012. My love, we're so much older now than when we first found love. We've hit some rough spots on the way, but when push comes to shove, we sure belong together, no question about it now. The depth of what we're feeling gives me pause somehow. I wonder how it came about that two like us should meet and not have passed as strangers on opposite sides of the street. What about Amarillo? How did it come about? Something was ordained for us. It makes me want to shout, I love this Kansas cowboy. He truly is the one I'll surely love forever. Besides, he's lots of fun. The Amarillo, I'll just tell you briefly the story. When I left Connecticut, I spoke with Tom on the phone. And he said, well, I'm going to Fort Sill to see my grandson. And some of you have heard this tale because it is amazing. And I'll end with it. Anyway, this was before cell phones. So, and we had not been in touch a lot. I just called to tell him I was coming back to New Mexico. And so I took off from Mother's and I just took my time. And I'd been on the road about 6.5 days or so when I headed down to Amarillo. And when we rang off, when I was in Connecticut and he was in Farmington, New Mexico, and he told me about going to Fort Sill, he said, I'll see you in Amarillo. And I'm like, well, sure. I never thought of it again. So I come down from the north through Amarillo, stop for a snack, get directions, wondering where is I-40? I kept driving and driving and driving. Finally, I get to I-40, go down the ramp, heading west. I had not gone one exit when this big yellow van pulls me off at the next exit, and it was Tom. The chances of that happening are a gazillion to 1. I did not know when he would be leaving Farmington. And I know that's why we were married. That's why I finally married him. See, he was 15 years older. And so that was the main bugaboo. I knew I loved him, but I thought, I don't want to marry somebody so much older. And it worked out beautifully in the long run because he ended up making up for the father who had rejected me in many ways because he was a little older, but also being this incredible partner that was just the high point of my life. And this was the first thing he gave me was this chunk of turquoise. And it's just a raw chunk of turquoise. And I added the other little things to it, but it was cool. He knew how to do silversmithing because he lived on the reservation. He could cut rocks. He was actually an opal cutter. When he was 80, he got his ham radio license. And, you know, it was wonderful. I feel so gifted. I feel as though I made a mistake when I was 22. And I'm so happy that I had the courage to say to my husband, look, we both, and he made it, he knew he'd been a mistake too. And let's set each other free. And he married someone that he's still with, is happy with. And I married Tom. And our kids understood and kind of, they were teenagers. And so anyway, you can make life at any age.
Amazing.
That's my conclusion.
That's amazing.
And I'm still making.
That was great, Sally.
Yes, wonderful.
I related to so much of what you wrote about. And then I do know that area of Mesa Verde and Silverton and Durango. And I had a daughter who lived in Santa Fe. I did business in Albuquerque, and they're beautiful places.
Oh, it's just awesome. Totally awesome. And there's a mystery to it all. And just when you're driving around New Mexico, you never know what's around the next bend. You never know what you're going to see. You know, and for me, I think the message that I would leave, because I have stories, loads of stories about things that have just happened, but I realized they didn't just happen. I let them happen. And I think if there's one word that I would leave everyone with, it's awareness. Be aware of who you see. Talk to strangers. And it was safer because most of these things took place some time ago. But it's, you never know. I mean, I ran into somebody down here on Union one afternoon. He had a big long lens and he was taking pictures. And so I said, I walked by and I said, are you a tourist? This was before mask wearing. And he said, no, I'm an architect and I live up in so and so, and I like to take pictures of the architecture in Pasadena. So I come down here sometimes. And so, but he said, and this was when I ran into him up the block, and he was taking a picture of a Spanish building across the corner here. And he said, but my picture needs some color. And I was wearing a bright yellow jacket. And so I said, well, you want me to go stand over there? And so I ended up being taken, being a photographer's model, standing on the doorstep so he could take a colorful picture. So it's just, and like when my car broke down in Youngstown, Ohio, on my way back to New Mexico, I got to know the assistant fire chief while it was being fixed. You just talk to people, you meet all kinds of interesting people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you even meet poets.
For lucky.
That guy is probably telling his friends, yeah, I was taking pictures and this woman started talking to me and she was a poet.
I don't think he knew that.
Yeah, well, they work both ways.
But
Thank
he
you
did
so
send
much, Sally.
I gotta get ready.
That was really great.
It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. It's the first time I've done a full hour.
Well,
And I
it was
wasn't
lovely.
sure.
It was just really nice.
Yes, I
Um,
enjoyed it. Very
So folks, look for our next Creative Connections in 2 months. And I believe we may have a musician next time.
Oh,
So
cool.
thanks so much. I appreciate you coming for this. And I think this is a really nice way to showcase talent in the village. And I'll bet you in the village, there are some closet painters. So if you know of any who might like to come out of the closet and show their work, I would love to talk to them. So let me know. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Lovely.
Sally.
Thank you, guys.
For having me.
Thank you, Sally.
Pleasure.
Coming, everybody.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Sally, very much.
You're wonderful.
I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, hi, guys. I didn't know you were there.
I'm still there. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye, Sally. Great work. Very nice.
Bye. Thank you.